the tech, people shouldn't be frightened of it because there's amazing tech out there right now. If someone can't really tell you how they feel, the tech that can pain check, that can tell you if someone is in pain or not in pain. And for anyone who works with people with learning difficulties, sometimes people make noise and you're not sure if it's a pain noise or just a noise that they sometimes enjoy the feeling of, etc. So stuff like that, let the tech do the cleaning and I'll do the fun stuff. Let tech do the jobs that no one wants to do, like hoovering the carpet and dusting, while the people then have more time to spend with the people. Tech has to be the add-on. You cannot take away the people.
Hello and welcome to the Health Automated podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of social care, technology, all things wellbeing, sprinkled with a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Lee Truman. Thrilled to have you join with us today. Before we get into it, please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, as it really helps get the message out there. We've got some amazing guests today. So going to start with Jenny. So we've got Jenny Page. A true expert in the field of care. Jenny brings a wealth of experience from her extensive work in care settings, as well as a valuable contribution to the Care Workers Charity and now the Outstanding Society. Her passion and dedication to improving the sector make her an amazing guest. She's also a best-selling author of When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a Carer, which you can check out on Amazon. How are we doing, Jenny? You all right?
Good, thank you, man. I've got imposter syndrome. You've made me feel like, I'm like, is that me he's talking about?
Yeah, that was you. Not only that, an amazing human being to top it off. So, yeah, great to have you. And with her, we've got Natalie Ravenscroft, who is the Service Development Manager of NAPA, which is the National Activity Providers Association. Natalie's a passionate advocate for wellbeing and engagement within care services, dedicated to enhancing the lives of those in care through meaningful activities. Welcome to the show. How are we doing? You all right?
Yeah, thank you for having me again. Same as Jenny. It's a bit like, wow, thank you.
Awesome. And with me are my two co-hosts. So we've got my fellow co-founder, brother from another mother, Health Automated, Jack White. How are we doing, Jack? You all right?
Yeah, all good. Lovely to see everyone.
Awesome. And with him, we've got the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to go and introduce him anyway. It's Mark Tops. He is the Regional Business Manager for Essex Cares, co-founder of the amazing Care Review that you can catch every Tuesday, and a regular ice cream man as well. So welcome, Mark. How are we doing? You all right?
Yes, not too bad. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Been a good week. Really good week. So yeah, really good. So yeah, going to go straight into it. So we're going to keep it the good and bad segments a bit brief today because we have got 5 people. We don't want to kind of eat into the other topics. So who wants to go first? Who's had a really good week?
Awkward silence.
Oh, we've had a good week. We've had a good week at NAPA. We had our winter get together with our team. We all work remotely, so it was nice to see each other in person. And of course, we had Dementia Congress last week as well, and the fabulous Majesticare celebration, their Star Awards and conference. So we've had a really good week here at NAPA, I would say.
Awesome. Mark?
Yeah, my week's not been too bad. I think the highlight of my week was utilising Cyber Monday, and I ventured into the world of home robotics and purchased a robotic Hoover, which is, as sad to say, transforming my life. I just have it going the whole time, much to my wife's annoyance, but floor is sparkly clean the whole time now, which is great.
Can't complain. Jack?
Oh, I've got a really exciting one. So my 6-year-old wants to get into AI. So my little boy wants to get a little robot kit for Christmas that we can learn programming with Python and start to get some self-awareness and making little things happen around the house with it. So really looking forward to that, and it's really good that he's showing a keen interest in future tech at a young age.
Yeah, no, awesome. Jenny?
Yeah, I've had a good week. I've not had anything wonderfully exciting happen. Just trying to balance. I think at this time of the year, if you're a parent, it's the work-life balance, trying to attend Christmas concerts and remember Christmas jumper day and £1 for this and a food bank donation here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, I'm just finding the juggle a little bit strenuous this week.
Awesome. I've had a really good week. So it's been a really good week. I'm going to top that off by going to the cinema to watch Moana 2. So looking forward to that. I will be taking the children with me just to kind of so I don't look too out of place, but yeah, going to watch that. So really looking forward to that. That'll be a bit of a treat. Love the first ones. Always singing the songs. And then the kids stopped liking it. I was like, don't. I like songs. You're welcome. So yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, we're going to jump into the topic. So today's episode is turning the focus onto how technology and AI are changing the landscape of activity provision within social care, the impact it can have for those using care services, challenges we face integrating new technologies, and what are our ambitions for the future. So a few talking points. So lucky to have a lot of guests here today with a wealth of experience. So with that being said, how is technology within a care service currently being used to benefit the people being supported, and how have we seen this transform well-being and activity provision compared to the old days where it was non-tech? Anyone want to go first on that one?
I don't mind speaking first. I was waiting for Natalie, as Natalie works for Napa. She's the absolute expert, so I feel like a bit of an imposter there. But when I was in care homes, tech was just starting to come into its own, and I think the very first thing that we all had to remember was like not to make assumptions, not to assume that because Bob is 85, he can't work on iPads, because actually sometimes the residents picked it up really, really fast. Some of the examples that I used was obviously virtual reality headsets. Straight away, when people utilize these things, it can be incredible. Sometimes be wary of, like anyone with a VR headset, actually, I was going to say just be wary of their surroundings, but with anyone with a VR headset, that's has to happen. Google Maps, believe it or not, is a tech that I absolutely love for residents in care homes. Asking a resident to tell you about their hometown and actually being able to go down the streets that they're talking about is wicked. Some of the conversations that we got based on that were far more than we would have got without the tech, because although they have the memories, it's like all of us really, a refresher to actually see something and go, oh, I remember that. That's where I went to school. And down that road was where my grandfather lived. And down that road, he worked in a shop. And it was great. Just Google Maps, being able to walk down the streets was one of my favourite tech things, believe it or not. And obviously using FaceTime to do the calls with friends and family members. That's for me the Google Maps, FaceTime, and also just access to music. Alexa is my 3 top tech for care homes. I just find all 3 of those things open so many doors, so many conversations. It's just incredible.
I like that because it's quite interesting talking about the Google Maps, because when we think about tech and how tech's helping you think about all these complex, really big tools, stuff like architecture, end-to-end AI care management platforms got lots in, but we don't normally stop and think about Google Maps. But that application, yeah, it's amazing. A lot of people might not have thought of that. So, yeah.
See, I think it's a very fascinating time, and I'm a major tech enthusiast. Like, tech makes my life easy. I love anything that I can automate, and I feel humans nowadays have a lot more potential and are a lot more intelligent than they ever were years ago. We have untapped resources at our disposal. And an example of how I've seen modern technology used in a basic form within care services is when you have someone, for instance, like a service user or a resident who says, I wish I could be taken back to this place and see this again. Well, let's load up YouTube and see if we can find a video. Chances are someone's uploaded it. It's like, wow, you can just pull that and the person can see that moment and relive that moment. And it allows for areas such as cognitive stimulation therapy, as you say, like music being played can help obviously the person re-engage, especially those with dementia. But we're in a pivotal point within society and social care where in the next few years technology is going to majorly increase and advance. And unfortunately, where we're in a regulated activity as well, a lot of care providers are also risk adverse to implementing a lot of this technology through lack of understanding, or is it compatible with. And I feel that we, as Jenny said, we downplay people's abilities. A lot of people have been using tech for the past sort of 20, 30 years. Yeah, it may not be an iPad, but some of the people that we're supporting now may have still used a computer in their later stage of their working career and have a basic understanding of, we make it sound like they're just used to reading newspapers and that's pretty much it. Give them anything and you'll scare them. And people are still able to learn new skills later on in life, right? So obviously, I feel that it's always good to promote and encourage the use of this, because everyone has a different sense of engagement and what they like doing. And I'll use an iPad as an example. A lot of us probably have like a tablet device, but we all have different games, apps and everything like that on there tailored to our style, and it allows us to do that. Whereas gone in the days, activities could be, well, we're all going to sit in a lounge, we're all going to play bingo at this time, and unfortunately you still, to this day, although we are getting a lot better, you still see a lot of understimulation within care-based services because people aren't adequately engaged. I'm not sure if anyone else would agree with that statement. I feel that as society, we are still lacking slightly in the application of technology when it comes to enhancing activities within residential services, but we are seeing major steps forward, especially with all of the new sort of tech-based gadgets coming out and the games that people can do. And as Jenny said, VR as an example, that's got a big application that's coming out now.
I think there's a lot to unpack here when it comes to tech and care. Certainly listening to our members here at the National Activity Providers Association. And when you talk about going back post what tech is available now, the first thing that sprung to my mind was, I remember when the Wii came out, and that was the first like major tech thing that we had in activities. Was we had this Wii console and we could able to play tennis and get people doing physical activities in that context. And I even could go far back as remember the first person that said they wanted to send an email to one of their friends, and us being shocked again, older people using tech really. But I think visiting care services at the moment, there is this thirst for tech from residents that are living in these communities or accessing the support from these communities, and rightfully so. We do have this pre-assumption in some cases that people won't be confident in using technology. Why would they want to use an iPad or send an email? But I think over the last, especially since the pandemic, where we was thrust into this situation where we had to quickly adapt to using technology, so using FaceTime, the gifting of tablets through businesses to enable care services to connect with families and friends. I think it kind of the tech side of it was a bit of a blessing because it moved people really quickly forward to realizing that actually the people that we support can use FaceTime, can use emails. But in terms of activities and engagement when it comes to tech now in the future, what point are we at? I did note a few big things that are happening with some of our members connecting around the world. So connecting communities, with the UK and the USA, and they're having full conversations and they're having packages. So they're doing like mirror calls where they're sending care packages to them from each town, and then they'll open them and they'll have that conversation. They'll have a look at the environment using Google Maps or sending good old literature from around the local area. There's instances where people are doing physical exercises but riding a bike down the River Seine, or gallivanting around the outbacks in Australia. There's perfect use of tech when it comes to adapting for all abilities, people being independent, being able to order their own shopping using an Alexa if they're visually impaired. There's so much out there at the moment when it comes to tech, but I suppose we'll get into this. There is certain barriers as well around that. Jack, you're absolutely right.
Awesome. Mark?
Yeah, I think how am I meant to follow all of you guys, because you've left me with the scraps to pick up. But I think the only thing, putting my learning disability hat on, listening to the conversation happening, is around actually how all of these bits, like the wearable tech, the assistive tech, actually promotes independence and allows people to go back out into the community, living in a care home on their journey to supported living, in terms of devices that can track their location, make sure that they feel safe. They can press a button and it can call the care home or the next of kin. I think, like we've spoken about, actually how it can connect them to their family members, and simple things. You just spoke there earlier, Jack, about actually how we've all got phones and tablets but with different apps. Actually, things like Monopoly and Scrabble, or games that they like to play with families, actually they can play that digitally and still be involved. I think two bits that stand out from me that I really like tech-wise in terms of connections. One is around Adopt a Grandparent. So for those that haven't heard that, actually how you can register yourself as a volunteer to be that grandparent, but you can connect with somebody in a care home. And actually, as the grandparent, you can be anywhere in the world. And actually how some of their case studies have seen people living with dementia, or maybe English isn't their first language, how they've come to life because they've been connected with somebody from their home country that can talk their language, can talk about the history, their likes, their interests. Actually, a really powerful piece of tech. And annoyingly, I was trying to Google in the background, but I can't remember the name. Actually, a digital newsletter that came from an idea in France, and it's really annoying me that I can't remember the name.
Familio.
That is the one. Thank you very much.
They're Napa recognised suppliers. If you want to go and have a look, I cannot recommend Familio enough. They're it was on my list to mention. Yeah, it's brilliant. Into Mark, off you go.
Really good. And again, that family connection where family can upload images, and then that becomes part of the newsletter for the person receiving care and support, either on a daily or weekly, monthly basis. But yeah, I think the world is our oyster with tech and what it can do for the people that we support. And I know we're going to talk about some of those challenges, and I think it's just overcoming those and broadening our horizon.
Awesome. So we'll talk about challenges in a minute, but is there kind of any tech that's making a splash or catching anyone's eyes in the realm of activity provision? I'll hand that one over to Natalie.
I think there's quite a lot really into the drum. It depends what whoever's listening to this is looking for specifically for their programs. As Mark said, there's technology there to connect with family and friends. There's a multitude of different apps and games that you can use, reminiscence space resources. Again, a lot of Napa's recognised suppliers, which you can see over on the website, are currently using tech in this approach to create memory games, or to create reminiscence opportunities, or to get physically fit, even dance classes, using technology to engage there. And I think we've written quite a few resources around getting creative with tech with our members, and also tech-based activity ideas and engagement resources, which are there for APs. But I think for us, it's the connection, with the connection through technology. We've released big screen games, so members are quite often asking for easy, simple, pick up and go kind of tech games. And we created this big screen games where they can just jump online, and it's a few puzzles or questions. But what we found was families were using it during visits. So the AP, it's about enablement. So the families, the AP was leaving it in the communal areas on big, I call them tiny tablets, but they're big tables. Yeah. And they would leave the game open, and it was simplified enough that anyone could just walk over and hit the next button, and the question was there. And what we found was the feedback is, again, that families were using that to have a meaningful visit. Quite often families struggle when they do visit loved ones, to what do they talk about? How do they interact and engage? Can they touch stuff in the care service? Are they allowed to play with the board games or the equipment around them? So giving that consent through tech like that, and then kind of forming a group session was really interesting. There is a lot out there. I don't think we have enough time to cover what we're aware of that's on the market, but certainly, as Jenny said before, VR sets. We was in an immersion room this week having a look what that looks like, of being traveling to Egypt, or looking at Van Gogh's sunflowers and being in an immersive room, what that looks like. So there's so much out there at the moment. It's just incredible.
Awesome. Jenny, did you have something on that one?
I was just going to say, one of my favourite techs for care homes, and unfortunately the challenge is that it can be quite expensive, but these massive light table things that project, and the interaction that you can have. And our favourite was sweeping up leaves. So you actually have a physical sweeping brush and a little shovel perhaps, and you're sweeping leaves off the table, and obviously the table is completely clear, but it's magical. And then there's something just almost naughty, I think residents felt at the time, like popping bubbles, like, oh, look at it pop. And it almost gave them that childlike joy of being quite naughty and popping bubbles full of paint, and actually there was no mess at all. But the joy they got from things like that, incredible. Like, I was amazed when I saw it. Was it Omi, maybe? The brand that we had was called Omi. But there are quite a few different companies that make these things, and although they are expensive, they are definitely worth it, in my opinion.
That just makes my heart so warm. It's just, yeah, awesome. Mark?
No, I think what both Natalie and Jenny have said, and just listening to Jenny there, actually I took somebody that I used to support with a learning disability to Bubble Planet, which was a immersive experience that popped up in London. But actually some of it was there, like ginormous bubbles, but actually a lot of it wasn't. It was projection and popping, and yeah. And they did have a robot there as well, Jack, so you would have loved it, in terms of one that was dipping the bubbles in and then blowing the bubbles, which was, yeah, definitely very futuristic. But I think it's just about the connections, like Natalie said, but also how some people are using it to break down the stigma of social care. And I think things like TikTok, Facebook Live, actually they can talk about their experiences within social care. So I see a lot of people with stoma bags or that are peg fed, breaking down actually what that means for them as a person. Because I think we talk about social care and quite often we think of elderly or those, living with a learning disability, but actually a lot of people that are accessing health and social care could be people like you and I that are working age adults, but are actually coming into contact with these services because of a medical diagnosis. And actually, I think sometimes breaking down those stigmas of how that impacts them personally, but also at work, allows all of us to grow and develop through their honesty and transparency.
Awesome. Anything catching your eye, Jack? I know you're a bit of a tech enthusiast, always got your eye on what is emerging, what's coming out, disrupting the market.
There's loads, but you know what? I think sometimes some of the low-tech solutions are quite good as well. And hear me out, but things like pinball machines, you can get these arcade machines now, the retro games, like Arcadia, Space Invaders and stuff like that. And a lot of the individuals that are receiving care from multiple age groups enjoy them sort of games. They're a retro sort of game. They're known from that era. And they get a lot of engagement, and I feel that sometimes we always look at like the most high-tech solution, but something like an air hockey table, right? Something that gets people moving has a game. I've also seen where some organisations have had what we call virtual leaderboards. So like they've had internal games that people play. They build up like sort of competitions, and then they have internal leaderboards and stuff like that, and it's quite good. There's loads that come out, and once again, as Mark was saying, it sort of suits the bracket of the individual that you're trying to cater for. And obviously it also depends on the individual's ability as well, because a lot of people can use a low-tech device, something like a pinball machine, and you get a lot of fun stimulation out of that, whereas someone might not be able to use quite a complex machine, you know. And I think it's having a good balance of where it sits. But I do love the retro games.
I'm feeling like I should pull out the Atari again, Jack, and we should be playing Pac-Man or the old Segas and Dungeon and Dragons. Just on that with what Jack was saying, great memories. Just on that with what Jack was saying, I think something else that's just triggers is about, we talk about activities, but actually, you know, the engagement as well is how APs are using tech for communication opportunities. And I know, Mark, you'll know about this working within your services, but I think working specifically in care homes, older care services, quite often APs will struggle, or care teams will struggle to have that conversation as in verbally with a person. And you know, you see quite a lot of tech with the tablets where they're using apps and systems where it's just a yes, no, or you know, an icon of a drink, which is enabling people to communicate better. But also then through the arts, there's lots of tech coming through with the arts, from digital photo workshops where APs are using tablets to take photos on walks, and then they're coming back and they're adapting them, and storytelling as well, painting, you know, just thinking about Jenny saying about popping the bubbles, but actually using iPads or similar tablets to colour and not get their hands dirty, but still create a lovely piece of art. So I think it's just amazing. There's just a lot there, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah, and I noticed you said before about sort of dance lessons. Is that something like dancing? I can't remember the lady's name. Is it Natalie?
No. So Jenny is from Dancing, and she's a director. She's she's an ambassador for NAPA. But also then we have like Burns Gym, you know, and these organisations, Charlie, these organisations are all developing online interactive spaces where people can be creative, again going back to the arts, you know, or creating musical moments. But yeah, I had a quick look through the Recognised Suppliers Directive before I come on, and just from tech, and I'm like, wow, actually when we look at the list, there is a lot that are using online and tech to connect across the UK. So they might be based in London, for example, but they can go into care services all over the UK. And again, that's the power of technology.
Absolutely. Just moving on, read some really good stuff there. Looking at the challenges, so always great getting tech in, but what are the challenges? So what are the biggest challenges faced integrating new technologies into care services when it comes to activities? And how can providers address these? So with the provider kind of hat on, I will throw over to Mark first on this one.
I think historically it's having a lack of lead activity personnel within a team. I think quite often it's a bolt-on to somebody else's job, so it falls to the wayside, or not protecting the time of an activity lead's role because actually they're covering the shift or they're covering the kitchen or something. I think a resistance to change. I think you will be working with staff that technology might be at the forefront of their mind, and actually then it's a blocker, isn't it? Because if they don't buy into it, then they're not going to buy into it for the people that they're supporting. I think we've touched on it, it's the cost versus return on investment for care providers, especially obviously as we enter kind of 2025 and budgets are going to get tighter than ever before. Actually, a lot of the tech, when we think of tech, it's very expensive, but actually, I think one thing that's really opened my eyes is actually how much is out there that you can probably buy or implement that actually is very cost effective. Just thinking of, you know, Natalie talking about going to get a Wii, actually you can probably pick one of them up for 10-15 quid these days, just because the technology's moved so much. Or a pinball machine, you probably find one on Facebook Marketplace for free. I think the other challenge is when we think about some of the advancements of tech that uses AI, perhaps, is what is out there and what are the benefits for the people that we support. And I think from a registered manager's perspective, they're so time poor, probably having the time to horizon scan, that's probably not on their top of their to-do list. It's probably understanding maybe the single assessment framework with the regulator would probably prioritise activity provision. So I think, to summarise, we need to put activity provision higher up the agenda of our priority than it probably currently sits.
Awesome.
I don't think you're alone in that, Mark. I think that's a kind of sector-wide thing. I wouldn't say that you'll be the only provider who would quietly admit that activities isn't the top of the list. But I definitely think you're right that it should be. And I was just going to add, like, you'll probably find that people will say that they have a big challenge putting tech in because they'll see that it's going to be expensive. But I mean, as we said about Google Maps, that's free. YouTube is free. There are ways of getting tech into your care home without spending a lot of money, and there's so many benefits. I think the fact that you can go on the internet and access even websites like Napa, which give you so much to utilize, so many ideas and directions to other places that you can use. I also think the internet itself allows us to be much more person-centered, because if you say I was born in the 80s, someone was born in the 50s, I do not know their music. But then I could make an assumption and think, oh, I do know 90s, 50s music, so that's all, I know that. The Rolling Stones were out in the 60s, but so was like old lady music. You don't know just because someone is between 70 and 80 that they want to listen to Dean Martin. And they might say to you, oh, there was this song and there was this line in it that said, you can whatever. And you can actually Google the line of the song and probably find that song for them. Like, can you imagine they haven't heard that song for 15, 20 years and you can just go on the internet and all of a sudden find it and play it for them? That's just like phenomenal to me. And I think the fact that people automatically say we don't have enough money for tech, we don't have enough money to utilize tech, well, you do actually. And I think it can just open so many doors without spending a lot of money.
100% agree. I mean, when it comes to activities, a service should be prioritizing this as one of their major USPs. You know, as a raw example, if you're looking at going on holiday, you're looking at a place that can offer you a lot to do while you're there, you know, to capture your engagement while you're there for that period of time. And the same as with services. You know, the more activities you've got, the more of a selling point it is, because you're going to have people that want to go there because they know they're going to be stimulated and engaged. And this is where I think a lot of services prioritize wrong. And I feel activities should be a protected role within the organisation. We understand staff shortages, we pull people from left, right, centre, you know, but realistically, activities are what keep a lot of the individuals stimulated throughout the day. And keeping people engaged actually does release some of the support workflow from the short-staffed side of the business, should we say. And when it comes to activities, you know, we all want to be kept engaged. We all have the same sort of underlying feelings. We like to feel accepted, part of a group, you know, and we like to be able to keep ourselves active and going. And when it comes to obviously the implementation, it is difficult. It really is, because it's trying to find a balance of what does everyone like. And I always use a basic example. It's like trying to choose a board game at Christmas. You know, who wants to play Monopoly? Someone doesn't want to play it because they've once had a bad experience, so they'll either sit out or they'll suggest something. And it is, you know, it's having options and variables where people can pick and choose and dip in and dip out, and not having a classic, well, we're doing bingo now, this is the time frame, and then later on we've got this, you know. And it's being able to give the people the options. But one of the major drawbacks sometimes as well is, and I have heard this raised as concerns previously of where tech may go. What do a lot of parents do with digital devices with their children when they're a bit busy? Go and chill out on that. Go and have a, you know, and there is the potential risk that they could be used in a negative way and used as an example for us to step back, you know, and allow that person to engage more into the tech. And then there's the balance then of, are we providing the activity, or is the tech providing the activity and we're just there in the background existing alongside? And I think that it does have to be really well assessed and monitored, especially when we are looking at using third-party systems. So I'll use YouTube as an example. if we're not using a paid subscription service, we're going to get targeted adverts. Them adverts might then expose the individuals to things that they might not necessarily need. So there has to be the application applied throughout in a fair way. But I've seen some pretty amazing examples of AI as well, where, as you say, Jenny, it learns your music style, you know, it knows you, it learns your routine, and it can help you plan and map your day. And I feel that using some of this tech enables people to have more control over how their day should be. You know, if I'm bored, I can go and just chill out. I can listen to music for half an hour. You know, I don't have to have a fixed routine when I've got a digital device. You know, I don't have to say I'm going to go out and spend 30 minutes now having a walk. You know, if I want to, I can go and play a game. I can listen to music, but I don't have to venture too far. You know, so you've also got that convenience factor and simplicity with the tech as well.
Awesome. Natalie?
Yeah, I think there's a whole different topic there, isn't there, around activity provision and how it's viewed within care services. So I won't get too much into that. But what I will say as the association is that we do have NAPA's quality standards and codes of ethics, which have been released. So if you're listening to this, they're free to go and download. If you want to think about how you as an activity provider or a service or a registered manager can work towards best practice when it comes to activity and engagement, and what that looks like. So do go and have a look at that, because it is free to download. But going back to, I had a thought about this, and going back to what are the barriers when it comes to tech. And I think that the true barrier comes down to, are we enhancing the individual's quality of life by using technology? And to answer that question, we need to know the individuals that we're supporting. And sometimes that data can be collected through online electronic systems. Sometimes it's talking to the person, sometimes it's their friends and families. But I think, you know, there's no point in implementing, and as Mark said, you know, like, it can be costly. There's no point in putting all that infrastructure into something if actually it's not going to enhance the quality of life for them individuals. So I would always start with that, and the person-centered approach, as we said before, that, you know, it means that we're adapting activities to meet the individual's needs, so that the tech we're using shouldn't be used to completely take away the traditional one-to-one activities or group activity sessions, but it ensures that they can participate in a meaningful way. And I think inclusivity as well. You know, we use at NAPA, we are digital. So a lot of our resources are there to cut out that time of having to spend hours and hours trawling the internet, making sure that what we're providing is inclusive and correct. For example, it's winter festivities, we're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. So making sure that the information that is being provided or that you're reading up on is factually correct and is not going to upset someone that probably will be celebrating Hanukkah this winter season, and we're not, you know, as an AP, where does our skill set lie? Because we've read something on Wikipedia or Google and we think it's correct. So it is, if we are researching something, it is about going to them correct sites of expertise, or as I say, reaching out to someone like NAPA that has them toolkits and resources which are there for you. But then that leads me on to training and support. So one of the biggest barriers again is, you know, as we move on to digital care planning and we're using digital technology around activities and engagement, what support are we giving the sector and our workforce to not scare them off? We talk about recruitment and retention at the moment, challenges that we're facing, and if someone's working in our service, for example, and maybe they're not on, I think we just assume that everyone can use a mobile phone or a smartphone, and maybe that is a barrier for them, you know, and what support and training is in place for that? How can we equip the care home staff with the knowledge and skills that they need to better include and operate said devices? Last two things were privacy and security. So again, a barrier being, you know, some people are quite nervous around even putting in their name on an app. So how do we encourage people to feel confident and competent that it's safe and secure, that their data is safe, and that we are following GDPR regulations when it comes to subscriptions or to creating profiles of the individuals that we're supporting. And of course, cost and accessibility. How we know through the pandemic that many services, even though they were gifted these tablets to be able to connect with families, they weren't geared up internally with their internet and Wi-Fi connections. You know, some parts it'd work in some part of the building, then it wouldn't work in other parts, or it'd drop down. Or so there's quite a few barriers there, but I don't think that should be seen as a negative. I don't take challenges as negative. I take it, you know, I grasp it and think, right, well, that's the challenge. How can we work around that to better understand and support? Because as we keep saying, we are developing the world of technology, and it's not going anywhere. So we need to work together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that brings us perfectly in line for the last question or last talking point. So with one eye on the future, so I think in 2020, if we thought where we'd be in 24 in terms of tech, I don't think we thought would be as far advanced, or especially me as a layman. Jack sitting there going, I knew where we were going. It was already developing architecture by then. I was like, yeah, it'll never happen. So what are the hopes and expectations for the future of tech and AI and social care, especially in relation to activity provision, and what needs to happen to achieve some of these goals? Anyone want to take that one first?
I'm happy to go first. We've just finished, so I might as well finish this last question. I think our hopes is that AI increases social interaction. I think that's what we want it to do. Again, we've seen that through connections through the UK and the USA. You know, we're hoping that it encourages people to engage more, whether that's the AI adapts if you've got people that speak a different language as their native tongue, more personalized experience as well. So you know, you talk about the Google Earth before, which is a lovely example, but you know, enabling individuals to understand that this will help you, for example, continue with your reading, even though that you might be living with glaucoma and you know you've got degenerative vision loss, that they're still able to lead the independent life that they need with the support of the AI technology. And in some cases for carers, you know, I've been a carer that used to have to write millions of care plans by hand. AI helping us to log activity and engagement, but not dehumanizing it, not taking out, not being generically copied and pasted. That the AI only helps where, you know, maybe they need support with paragraphs or spelling, but not actually taking over and totally writing them experiences and them magical moments for them.
Awesome. Jack?
Yeah, kind of what along the same lines as what Natalie was saying, really. So ensuring that when we roll out tech, it's compatible with the individual, it meets their requirements, accessibility wise, they can actually access it and it meets their needs. You know, I suppose this is one of the good things about modern tech, especially as a tablet, as an example. You can adjust the screen display, the text resolution, it's quite portable, you know, and that's really, really good. But when we look at AI, I think in society is still in its infancy. You know, although we think AI is quite advanced, there's still a long way to go. And realistically, a perfect application of an AI would be something that manages to learn each individual, their likes, their dislikes, recommend activities to them, but can also recommend and pick up on their sentiments. So if it appears that someone's not responding in a way that they usually would, you know, it can try to recommend something to carry on that engagement, to try and drive the positivity and focus, you know. And I feel that there's a lot that can be applied over the next few years when it comes to learning from each other and how it's worked in some organisations, because every care service runs different. They're going to have different ways of working, and what implementation strategy works for one may not necessarily work for another. Although I think we do underestimate the abilities of our workforce. A lot of people nowadays are used to tech to some script, and a lot of the individuals that you'll see will happily embrace that. Yeah, I want to learn something new. If they feel it's going to improve their way of working and the service users' actual experience, I think there's a lot of people that are willing to embrace that change. But you've also got to have a good transitional change leadership plan in place, to make sure that everyone's ready. You've got the key players who are happy to identify and how to roll it out. And when it comes to this, there's a lot we could unpack. I think a lot of people bang the same drum of the anxieties about implementing technology, regardless of what it is, into social care. But when it comes to activities, there's a lot that comes into the way people actually engage as a person. What drives me to want to engage? People will engage at certain times of the day and be more responsive at certain times of the day. So it's learning a lot of this. And I feel over the next 5 years, we're going to learn a lot how individuals actually engage with technology. And I think that will then drive the next 10 years of future development on how we apply it thoroughly throughout health and social care.
Cool. Have you got any, as being a tech enthusiast, someone who's in the development world, any idea where we'll be in 5 years in terms of like tech and AI, or is that a kind of weird question?
Look at where we are now. We all engage with AI pretty much on a daily basis and don't even realize a lot of the time we are. If I'm booking my car in for a service, that's an AI that's having a conversation with me. And it's scary. It's quite lifelike. And I feel that in the next 5 years, AI will be able to significantly improve a lot of individuals' lives, from anywhere just as general engagement to predictive decline to health monitoring and recommendations. There's a major application that's going to go across health and social care. And I feel all of that combined, as long as it's done ethically and safely, will overly enhance individuals' care.
Awesome. Who wants to take that one next?
My hopes and expectations are that, like Mark said, with activities, sometimes it's an add-on. I'd love to see activities as a main character energy for the activities, and tech is the add-on, because the tech should really be used in addition to the person who's running the activities, in my opinion. As we don't want what Jack said, here's the iPad, leave me alone for an hour. That's not what we're all about at all. But I also think the tech, people shouldn't be frightened of it, because there's amazing tech out there right now. One of the things I completely forgot about, which can be related to activities, if someone can't really tell you how they feel, the tech that can pain check is the one that I have heard of, which can actually scan. I don't know the ins and outs, but it can tell you if someone is in pain or not in pain. And for anyone who works with people with learning difficulties, sometimes people make noise and you're not sure if it's a pain noise or just a noise that they sometimes enjoy the feeling of, etc. So stuff like that. And the Roomba. Let the tech do the cleaning and I'll do the fun stuff. And that's my thoughts for the future. Let tech do the jobs that no one wants to do, like hoovering the carpet and dusting, while the people then have more time to spend with the people. Tech has to be the add-on. They cannot take away the people.
Human
That's
augmentation.
You got the Tesla robots coming soon.
Well, we've just come from America, myself and Hillary, and in America, in the care services, they had Cece, and Cece was probably about the size of I'd probably say a medium-sized dog, so a Jack Russell, a bit smaller than a collie. And Cece would go around cleaning the floors. The residents engaged with her as in like a kind of a pet. She had eyes, and they named her Cece. And they also had a waiter, so you've seen them quite often in London, where they zoom around with the foods on the tray, going to people's rooms and stuff. So absolutely right, Jenny. It is about not taking away the activity provider as such, because obviously they're the ones that are going to facilitate and support, but how the tech works alongside the activity providers without adding on to their workload as well, actually helping them and enabling them to have them connections. But America's already got tech working for them in care services, which is incredible to see.
Awesome. Mark?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with what everybody has said in terms of it can't replace the human. It's got to be an add-on. And I think just listening to you there, Natalie, actually, as providers, we've all got a responsibility to look at what's happening overseas to see actually how we can bring that in and connect in with other social care services. I think for me, we've just touched on actually CC doing the hoovering, but there's also other smart tech. If we've got people in supported living actually that we know lose their keys, actually could they have something like a fingerprint lock, because they're very common nowadays. A lot of people, my next door neighbour's got one. Actually, it reduces that risk of somebody else being able to access their property. Jenny spoke about some of those advancements that are coming and doing the jobs that you don't like. Actually, the equipment market is completely transforming in terms of beds that can now act as the second carer. So actually there'll be less reliance on needing two carers, which actually might help with the recruitment and the retention and moving and handling injuries that we currently see. I think the only two things that we haven't touched on is the ability that tech will have to learn new skills. And I'm going back to putting my LD hat on in terms of like when 3D printing first came out, actually how many of the people that we supported really got behind that and learned how to use it and build things that they could then sell on a boot sale stall and actually have an extra income, or even if they just wanted to make something for their mum, their dad. And I think the only thing we need to be mindful of is that we don't limit people just because they live in care. And I was just thinking about what you just said, Jack, around those Tesla robots that are coming, that when they become price affordable, I cannot wait to have. But how many people will think, oh, Tesla, that's Elon Musk, no, we're not having one of them in the care home? Or like something like Bitcoin, like a digital currency, I can probably guarantee that hardly anybody living in a care home has Bitcoin because the risk would be seen as too high. But actually, is a digital currency the future? You don't know what's further down the line. So I think we need to remove some of the bias that we all have around tech, that we don't hinder the people that are using care services, because actually I think that could put them at a disadvantage as opposed to at an advantage.
Awesome. That's been an incredible episode. Some really good takeaways. I think the key takeaway is, let's not assume just because Bob's 80-year-old, he might want to listen to some Tupac. He might not want to listen to Dean Martin. He might be Tupac. Just because Anne's 90, she might like Linkin Park. We don't know. Again, it's just speak to people and make sure that tech is the human augmentation, so making us more effective, but keeping the human to human relationships alive, because that's what it's all about. Great episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, like, follow, whatever you do to all the different social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, stuff like that. But yeah, everyone have a great time.
No, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Cheers.
See you. Bye. Has he found the button? Yeah, he hasn't, has he?
I found the button. I'm going to stop it manually.